Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have to apologize for my long absence here on YouTube. I haven't been creating cards or videos because we moved into our new home last summer and I was hoping to get my craft room set up so I could continue with my YouTube channel. However, we had some tragic things happen to our family last year, so I have not had the desire or want to use my creative energy to be able to create cards and videos again. But I wanted to start off this new year, 2019, getting back into my craft room and getting back here on YouTube. And I thought I would start off my new year with a masculine Valentine's Day card. So I'm going to show you how I created this card with a masculine twist for Valentine's Day. I'm taking some brown cardstock from Recollections. This is their 110-pound version. And I'm cutting it in half. It's 8.5 by 11, but I'm cutting it down to 5.5 by 8.5. And I'm going to be scoring it down the middle with my Martha Stewart mini scoring board at 4 1/4 to create an A2 size card. I'm using my Cricut embossing tool. I actually love this tool for scoring with in my Martha Stewart scoreboard because it has a really nice fine point to it that I'm able to get into the grooves and make a nice score. I creased that with my bone folder, and as you can see, my paper trimmer blade is pretty dull, and so I had lots of paper fibers left on my cardstock. So I just took my sanding block and sanded those down, and it creates a nice finished edge on that cardstock without having to replace my blade. So I'm taking this rubber stamp. This is actually from my collection, and it's from the dollar store that I got years ago, or it might actually be Michael's in the dollar bin. And it's just, it was a wood block that I unmounted and stuck onto some cling foam, and I just put adhesive on the back of it so I could stick it down to my Misty stamp tool, which I absolutely love. And I'm inking up that stamp with some Lawn Fawn walnut ink, and I'm having to push pretty hard because of the stamp is not it didn't come this way on the cling foam. It came on a wood mounted block, so it's not the, and it's a more inexpensive stamp, so it's not the highest quality either. So there's a space on the stamp I didn't quite get, but I was pretty happy with the results in the end. So I cleaned off the stamp with a baby wipe. I used the Kirkland baby wipes, and now I'm taking my most favorite paper snip scissors. These are the ones by Cricut, and they're very, very, very sharp, and I love to use these for cutting out images, fussy cutting, or paper piecing. So I just cut that image out using my scissors, and I'm putting the foam insert back into my Misty. I took that out because when using cling foam or cling mounted stamps, you want to remove that cling pad, or sorry, that mouse pad material. Otherwise your stamp will be too thick and you won't be able to stamp onto your paper. So I'm using a clear mounted stamp now, and this is from the Simon Says stamp set called You and Me, and this was from a card kit I believe last year or the year before, and I absolutely love the stamp set. I haven't had much time to use it, so I wanted to use it and I thought it'd be perfect for this card. So I'm inking it up, one of the stamps, the one that says You and Me equals awesome. However, I'm only beginning using the You and the Me and an equals from this stamp set. And I'm inking it up with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is my favorite ink to use with sentiments because it's so crisp. The only thing you have to be careful with this ink is that because it's a pigment based, it does take a little bit longer to dry than your typical dye based ink. So I'm going to go back to my favorite paper snip scissors, these Cricut scissors, to cut out the stamps that I am cutting out. So that little equals sign, and then I'll be cutting out the U and also the word me. And I'm just taking a little roll of washi tape. I can't find my little bowl that I use to hold all my little die cuts out. So I'm using the little washi tape roll to put all of my little pieces so I don't lose them. So it's a good hack to use if you don't have a little space to put your small die cuts. You can actually just use like a small roll of washi tape to put your little die cuts in the middle, so then they don't go flying and you lose them on your craft space. I found this piece of pattern paper in my collection. I believe it was a Recollections paper, I'm not sure. I get most of my materials from Michael's, and I cut that piece down to 4 inches by 5 1/4 so it'll fit on the front of my card base. And I also took some red glitter cardstock, and this is again probably Recollections. Like I said, I buy a lot of my materials from Michael's and I use the Recollections brand. And I am gluing those small sentiments that I had stamped out onto the glitter cardstock. And I'm just using my favorite liquid adhesive right now. It's by Nuvo, and it's called the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive Clear Drying Craft Glue. And the reason I love this stuff is that it takes it dries so incredibly fast. So I have a few seconds to be able to wiggle my images around to get them perfectly centered, and then they're dry. Like, it's really that quick. So now I'm just going to use my paper snips just to cut that glitter cardstock, just so there's a tiny bit of a frame around all of the sentiments, and also that equals sign. And just to give it a little something to have a little bit of glitter popped around those little sentiments. I didn't want to go too glitzy. Like I said, this is going to be a masculine card, and I don't want to go too frilly or glitzy with it. So I thought a little bit of glitter would be okay to make it Valentine's Day appropriate, but still not be too glitzy, if that makes sense. So I also die cut this sentiment love using my Cricut, and I die cut it 5 times, once out of that red glitter cardstock, and then 4 times out of some white 110 pound Recollections cardstock. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking my tweezers and I'm going to be stacking all 5 L's together to create a dimensional sentiment. It's almost going to look like chipboard because it's going to have a lot of dimension. You could, if you wanted dimension, take foam tape and cut it really, really thin and try and get the foam tape behind each letter. But I thought this would be so much easier. I actually got this tip from Jennifer McGuire. She's been doing this for a very long time, and I love how it turns out. You can see there with the 5 layers how much dimension you get, and it looks like a little chipboard piece. So I did the same to all 4 letters, and you can see they have that nice white edge on them, and I just love how they look like they were, that you bought them that way, that they were like an embellishment that you purchased at the store. So I decided to trim down that pattern piece of paper, that wood grain paper that from Recollections, trim it down a little bit more, and put it onto some glitter cardstock on the sides, because I wanted the red glitter to pop out a little bit more on the rest of the card. And so I'm cutting it down to about 5.5 by 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to cut that piece in half again, and I'm going to have one tiny strip on each side of that pattern paper, just to add a little bit more glitz and glam to this cardstock, or to this card rather, without being too heavy in glitter. So I'm using some double-sided adhesive, again, this is from our dollar store, and I'm just placing that on either side of this piece of wood grain paper. And I'm going to remove the backer piece as soon as I get it lined up on the sides. And you'll see on that side the adhesive is a little bit too long, so I just fold over the edge. And then I'm going to line it up on my craft mat. I use my grid mat a lot for lining things up. And I'm going to get that perfectly aligned, so just a tiny little strip of that red glitter is peeking out on the sides of that pattern paper. So once I get that adhered, I'm going to grab my scissors and I'll trim off the excess on either side so that they fit perfectly. And then I'm going to use my favorite adhesive that I use for thin pieces of paper that I'm adhering to with my card base. And so it's a dot liner adhesive, and I got mine from Amazon. So I'm adhering that down to the front of the card base. So you can see that nice little red glitter popping on the side. So I'm going to go back to that ampersand that I had cut out, and I'm going to pop it up with some foam tape. This is a little bit easier to pop up because there's some thicker spaces around that you can adhere the foam tape to. So I'm going to peel off all those backer pieces, and then I'll press that down firmly onto my card. And I'm also going to cut down some foam tape and add it to these little sentiments that I had adhered to that glitter cardstock, as well as that little equal sign. And this foam tape is from the dollar store. It was actually in the, I think it was in the hardware section as like foam mounting squares, but I actually use it for crafting, and I love how inexpensive it is. It was $1.25 for this huge roll. And they come in little squares on the roll, but you can cut them down to size if you'd like. And the nice thing is, because they're not too thick, you can actually double them up, which I'll show you, I will do a little bit later. So I'm peeling off all the backer pieces, getting those lined straight. And now I'm going to adhere my love sentiment that I had created, and using that same Nouveau Deluxe white glue, adhering those down. Like I said, this glue dries super fast, so it's really easy to get these in place. I'm taking a clear clear centering ruler to align my letters. And I love this ruler because it has lots of lines on on the ruler, but you can see through it. So it's really easy to use it to line up your sentiments. So I'm just getting those letters lined up the way I like it. I'm going to push those down. And now I'm going to lift the card so you can see all that awesome dimension you get from using either the foam squares or layering those letters to get a nice dimensional look. I thought I wanted to put some washi tape there, but after putting it down, I did not like it. It did not go. But there needed to be something there because there was this space at the top of the card. So I decided to take some celebrated bamboo twine. Again, this is from Michaels. And I'm just cutting a slit in the side of the card with my craft knife. And I'm going to be putting the bamboo twine through that little slit and wrapping it around the card several times and to make this really nice embellishment with the twine. So I'll get that wrapped around the card a few times. It takes me a little bit, it's a little bit tricky to get it through that hole that I had snipped with my craft knife. So once I try and get it through the hole, I'm going to take my tweezers and push the bamboo twine through the hole with my tweezers. And I'll pull that through and wrap it around. And like I said, I do this a few times. And once I'm happy with how many times I got it wrapped around, I'm going to cut it down off of that bamboo twine roll, and I will tie a little bow with the twine. So I'm going to pull that through one more time, and I'm going to, oh sorry, I lied, one more time. I thought I did it 3 times, but I guess I did it 4 times. Push that through with my tweezers. These are tweezer bees. I love them because they're kind of the opposite of tweezers where you squeeze to open them instead of squeeze to close them. So then I'm going to cut that down and I will tie a little bow. I'm going to spread out the bamboo twine a little bit on the card. Now I have a little trick when tying bows with twine. Once you tie your first half knot and you're happy with your placement, you're going to pull it as tight as you can, and then you'll take those tweezer bees, the ones that you squeeze to open, and because they squeeze closed when it's in its natural position, it'll actually hold that twine in place while you fuss with your loops of your knot, or of your bow rather, and it's a great way to get a nice bow tied without having to have a second pair of hands. So I'm just going to fuss with those strings a little bit until I'm happy with how the bow looks. And once I'm happy with the placement and the size of the bow, I will snip off the excess with my scissors. So once I'm happy with the placement of that twine, I'm going to flip my card over, and I'm actually going to put some Scotch tape down over top of that twine. And that way it's going to prevent that twine from sliding around and moving, and it'll stay in the spot that I like it. I'm also taking this 65-pound Recollections cardstock, cutting it down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm cutting 2 card panels. And I'm going to be using that to cover the twine on the inside of the card. That way you can't see the twine or that Scotch tape very well. And it just gives the card a nice area to be able to add a stamped sentiment and write in it for whoever I'm going to be giving this to. I'm most likely going to be giving this card to my husband for Valentine's Day. So Danny, if you're watching this video, you're welcome. Anyways, and so I'm gluing that down with some Nouveau liquid glue, and I'm adhering those panels on the inside of the card. I stared at this card probably for about 10 minutes deciding whether or not I was going to add some white stitch lines. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll see that I like to add stitching lines to my card. I wasn't sure if it was a good fit for this card, but after staring at it for about 10 minutes, I decided to go ahead and add the white stitch lines using a white Jelly Roll pen. The inside of that O needed something, and so I found this sticker collection I had, the sticker from my collection, and I decided to color it with some black marker. This is actually a permanent marker, an alcohol ink based Spectrum Noir marker. And I don't know why I didn't record it, but it didn't record me actually coloring it. So I just showed you how what I did with the marker to make it black. I believe it was a red heart previously. And so using a permanent marker, I'm able to change the color of the heart of the sticker, which is really nice. And now I'm taking that foam mounting squares and I'm putting 2 of them together, so doubling it up to give this sticker a lot of extra dimension. I really wanted it to pop on this card. So doubling it up gives it the opportunity to really stand out. And now you can see all that awesome dimension you get on this card. This is a card you probably don't want to send in the mail with all that dimension. You would have to pay extra postage for something with this amount of dimension, as well as it might get damaged in the mail. I decided to add a sentiment to the inside of the card, so I'm taking this stamp from the Simon Says stamp, Only Have Eyes for You, and I'm inking that up with some Onyx Black VersaFine ink, that same ink I used earlier, and stamping that in the inside of the card. And I'm also taking this stitched heart from that same stamp set and inking that up and adding it on either side of that sentiment, just to give it a little bit something without being too cutesy, but I wanted a little bit of hearts on here just because it is a Valentine's Day card. So there you have it. There is the card I created. I want to thank you guys so much for being so patient, and I haven't created many videos like I said, and so I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out if you could do that. And stay tuned, as I hope to be posting a lot more videos in the near future. And take care, and we'll talk to you soon.